Congressional Democrats still don't have a deal on a domestic spending bill a day before President Biden is set to go overseas. Plus, Representative Joyce Beatty speaks to the Black Caucus about the importance of the infrastructure bill. And in sports, Ohio women's soccer plays for a conference championship tomorrow afternoon. Newswatch starts right now. Good evening, I'm Joe Collins. Welcome to Newswatch, your source for news impacting southeastern Ohio. Planned forest fires burns are set to happen in Athens County, as the Wayne National Forest plans prescribed fires in 2 areas totaling up to more than 1,000 acres this fall. The planned areas are located in the Athens and Ironton Ranger districts, with a majority in Athens County. Prescribed burns are intentional fires managed by professional wildland firefighters. The Athens Messenger reports there will be a temporary flight restriction over the burn areas during the burns. Investigators are looking into a second report of a suspicious item found in an Ohio River barge. Wood County 911 Center Director Rick Woodyard told the Marietta Times the object was found on a boat docked in the Ohio side of the river about a mile north of the Williamstown Bridge. West Virginia State Police are investigating the report as the Ohio River is considered part of West Virginia. The recent report comes after authorities found what was described as a self-constructed bomb on a barge carrying gravel on the river. The bomb was later dismantled by a West Virginia State Bomb Squad. You're about to see a bizarre Halloween tradition. It's called the annual pumpkin roll, and it happens in suburban Cleveland each year a few days before All Hallows Eve. The event started as a prank by a bunch of high school students in 1967 and has endured since then. Students use a dump truck to unload pumpkins of the top of a hill that leads down to the Chagrin Falls main street. Some of the pumpkins are donated, others are apparently stolen. Though the students appear to have a great time, you can see why some residents aren't exactly happy with the tradition. Police will give organizers a ticket for illegal dumping, but students raise money to pay that fine and clean up the mess. We're now joined by forecaster Aaron Ashley for today's weather report, who I understand is hanging out with some more intact pumpkins.
Thank you so much, Joe. I'm actually down here in Meigs County at Porter's Pumpkin Patch, where the pumpkins are orange, the chickens are out, but the skies are in fact cloudy. Unfortunately, in Athens, it's 55 degrees with very crisp temperatures. Clouds are going to thicken as we head into tonight, and winds are generally very calm. Across our region, you can expect to see some very similar cloudy skies, just like the ones you see behind me. Temperatures are going to be in the mid-50s as well. It's going to be a little bit cooler to our northeast as per usual. So expect temperatures, I'd say, around 53 degrees in New Martinsville as well as Cambridge. Some things to expect as we head into the Halloween weekend. Like tonight, it's going to feature some cloudy and brisk nights and maybe even a rain shower or two, especially on Friday. I know our guys at Gridiron Glory are very excited to be out in the rain a little bit, but Joe, you definitely might want to play a little bit of Here Comes the Sun by the Beatles, because
I'll be sure to try that.
Wishing for as we head in for this weekend.
I'll be sure to try that, Aaron. And speaking of the sun, the Ohio Power Sitting Board signed off on solar farms in Ross and Champaign counties on Thursday. The Columbus Dispatch reports the 144 megawatt Clearview project in Champaign County will take up about 1,075 acres. The Ross County Solar Project will be a 120 megawatt project taking up 927 acres. Ohio is seeing a steady approval of solar projects as developers move away from wind power to solar. Last week's sign-offs bring the number of approved solar farms in Ohio to 22. The Ohio School Board Association is no longer in ties with the National School Boards Group. This comes after the National School Board Association sent a letter to President Biden for federal help with incidents at school board meetings. 2 Ohio protesters over masks were cited. The Ohio School Boards Association CEO says his group wasn't consulted on the letter and says it went too far. The National School Board Association says they regret and apologize for the letter that was sent. Violence and threats towards public school officials over mask and critical race theory were described in the letter as, quote, equivalent to a form of domestic terrorism and hate crimes, unquote. Ohio isn't the first state to leave the NSBA, and dozens of other states are also considering leaving the school. As President Biden prepares for a series of major conferences on the global stage, congressional Democrats are racing against the clock, anxious to deliver a deal before he departs for Europe. Chris Wynn has more from Washington.
Members of Hoping to secure support for President Biden's Build Back Better plan, White House officials met Wednesday with key holdouts, including West Virginia Senator Joe Manchin, who says he believes an agreement can still be reached.
To expand social programs when you have trust funds that aren't solvent, they're going insolvent, I can't explain that. It doesn't make sense to me. I want to work with everyone as long as we can start paying for things.
The initial $3.5 trillion spending bill is now expected to be roughly half its original size, but would still address climate change, universal pre-K, and health care, among other issues.
When it's ready, it will be ready.
Senate Republicans are united in their opposition, but nearly all Senate Democrats want to tax the richest of the rich, forcing billionaires to help pay for the package and increase tax rates for top corporations.
What we're trying to do is ask the wealthy, the very wealthy, to pay their fair share in order to finance some improvements in regular people's lives.
Progressives say a deal ahead of President Biden's trip to the G20 summit, followed by a United Nations climate conference, would strengthen his argument for a stronger global response to climate change.
The big win on climate is in the Build Back Better Act, not the infrastructure bill. So we have to do both together to give him that credibility that he really needs to be able to go there with.
The $1 trillion bipartisan infrastructure bill passed by the Senate has yet to be voted on in the House. In Washington, I'm Chris Wynn.
And as progressive Democrats continue to concede parts of the infrastructure bill, Representative Joyce Beatty of Columbus and chair of the Congressional Black Caucus says she's still happy with the progress.
The reason this is important is because when you look at the Congressional Black Caucus represents 17 million Black Americans and 80 million Americans. But let's look at the issues, the disparities, and what we're fighting for in these two bills. We've been at the table. While it's not a perfect ending, it is a lot of progress.
Ohio's unemployment rate remains at 5.4% for the third straight month. According to the Ohio Department of Job and Family Services data released last week, Ohio employers added nearly 10,000 jobs last month. The state's labor force also gained more than 22,000 workers in September. The Columbus Dispatch reports that this state needs another 243,000 jobs to get back to where it was before the pandemic. Cigarette sales reached the highest price in 20 years. The cause of death in a movie set shooting is official. These stories and more when Newswatch returns.
All along the New England coast, ospreys are icons of summer. They've come to take up their greatest challenge, to compete with each other, to fend off thieves, and to raise tiny, helpless chicks. For an osprey, summer is no day at the beach. It's an annual call to battle and the toughest test of everything they are.
Hello, I'm Bob Ross.
We were sitting on an incredible story, and my first thought was, why are we not telling this?
It's just amazing. You get to see the studio and all the original artifacts.
It's like any other room until you know the story. Bob Ross painted here. Suddenly, this space becomes magical.
This is a great new destination for Bob Ross fans all over.
The Bob Ross experience is a home for Bob Ross.
Any Bob fan would love it.
On Secrets of the Dead. Until now, the experiences of early women received little attention.
The female was simply forgotten.
The true story of prehistoric woman is being brought to light.
We operate under the assumption that it's the prime age males that are the be-all and end-all of Ice Age lifeways, and they're not.
Lady Sapiens on Secrets of the Dead.
Welcome back. For the first time in 20 years, cigarette sales are on the rise. According to the Federal Trade Commission, cigarette sales went up last year for the first time in 20 years. It was only a 0.4% increase, but that's still surprising for a number that's been going down each year of the 21st century. It's not known exactly why people are buying more cigarettes. Some experts say increased isolation and uncertainty increase the risk of substance abuse. The Wall Street Journal reports more smokers are switching back to cigarettes due to new restrictions on flavored vaping devices. Cigarette maker Altria said it believes Americans are simply adding nicotine occasions to their day. About 14% of adults in the U.S. smoke. They bought 203.7 billion cigarettes in 2020. 12 jurors are set to decide whether organizers of the Unite the Right rally in Charlottesville, Virginia, knew the event would turn violent. One person was killed and dozens of people were injured in the chaos surrounding the 2017 rally. Charlottesville residents and counter-protesters filed the civil lawsuit. They claim organizers engaged in the damages for the physical and emotional injuries they suffered. Selecting the jurors took 3 days. The judges asked them about their feelings on racism, the Black Lives Matter movement, Antifa, white nationalism, and whether they already decided who was responsible for the violence. The trial continues Thursday with opening statements. An update on the Rust set shooting. New information in the investigation into a deadly incident on set of the movie Rust. The Santa Fe County Sheriff says the gun used by actor Alec Baldwin fired a suspected live round that killed a crew member.
The facts are clear. A weapon was handed to Mr. Baldwin. The weapon is functional and fired a live round.
After nearly a week of uncertainty, Santa Fe Sheriff Adam Mendoza says investigators suspect it was a live round fired by actor Alec Baldwin that killed cinematographer Helena Hutchins and injured director Joel Souza on the set of the movie Rust. Sheriff Mendoza says the so-called dead projectile was recovered from Souza's shoulder.
We regard this specific spent casing and recovered projectile to be the live round that was fired from the revolver by Mr. Baldwin.
Through search warrants, investigators say they collected about 600 items of evidence, including 3 firearms, approximately 500 rounds of ammunition, and several pieces of clothing and accessories.
We believe that we have in our possession the firearm that was fired by Mr. Baldwin.
Now they are working to figure out how a loaded gun ended up in Baldwin's hands that day.
People that inspected or handled the firearm when it was loaded before it got to Mr. Baldwin, we're interviewing. And there's some follow-up questions that we need to do.
Baldwin is cooperating with investigators. As for potential charges for anyone involved,
we cannot answer that question yet until we complete a more thorough investigation.
I'm Daryl Forges reporting.
U.S. passports now have a new gender identity option. That story's still ahead.
And Halloween is just around the corner, and will there be any spooky and scary showers? Stay tuned for my full forecast, but for now, take a look at stocks of local interest.
The New England coast, ospreys are icons of summer. They've come to take up their greatest challenge, to compete with each other, to fend off thieves, and to raise tiny, helpless chicks. For an osprey, summer is no day at the beach. It's an annual call to battle and the toughest test of everything they are.
Hello, I'm Bob Ross.
We were sitting on an incredible story, and my first thought was, why are we not telling this?
It's just amazing. You get to see the studio and all the original artifacts.
It's like any other room until you know the story. Bob Ross painted here. Suddenly, this space becomes magical.
This is a great new destination for Bob Ross fans all over.
The Bob Ross experience is a home for Bob Ross.
Any Bob fan would love it.
On Secrets of the Dead. Until now, the experiences of early women received little attention.
The female was simply forgotten.
The true story of prehistoric woman is being brought to light.
We operate under the assumption that it's the prime age males that are the be-all and end-all of Ice Age lifeways, and they're not.
Lady Sapiens on Secrets of the Dead.
When we deployed to Afghanistan,
Iraq, Korea,
Vietnam.
we're at war.
Fear and anxiety becomes the new normal.
Combat up close changes you. I was so badly injured, my crew thought I was dead. They pulled me out anyway, because you never leave anyone behind.
On D-Day, at 4 o'clock in the morning, I was a boy. 10 o'clock at night, I was a man.
Welcome back. I'm still here in Meigs County at Porter's Pumpkin Patch. As you can see, it's getting a little dark outside. The chickens are getting ready to roost back in their barn. And I'm still here giving you the weather, of course. Looking at the skies right now, obviously you can see and expect a lot of clouds. And that is going to stay in our area for tonight, heading into tomorrow. And actually tomorrow night, you can see across the Great Plains region right now, there's a big stretch of clouds. Those clouds are going to push into our region, leading to a chance of rain starting as early as tomorrow night, heading into Friday morning. And looking at the surface features, you can see that low pressure system sits right to the east of Oklahoma, kind of close to Arkansas. It's going to push a little northeast heading into our region in southeast Ohio. It's going to be the main cause for any high winds, rain, maybe a crack of thunder or two. I don't expect thunderstorms to be the main course of chaos. Looking at the hour by hour heading into tonight, 8 o'clock, it's going to be 49 degrees, and it's going to consistently drop to 48 degrees at 10 p.m. The winds are going to steady out a little bit as clouds will increase at midnight with a temperature of 47 degrees. Athens tonight, the low is going to be 45 degrees, mostly cloudy skies. Those clouds are going to be dense. Those temperatures are going to be bitter. Grab a coat if you have any late night plans, definitely something you'll want to prioritize. Winds are going to be from the east direction, anywhere from 0 to 5 miles per hour. Across the region tonight, you can expect to see temperatures in the mid to upper 40s, with warmer temperatures being to our northwestern areas of Columbus being 49 degrees, 47 degrees in Newark and New Lexington. It's going to be a little chillier to our southeast, regions of Ripley, Marietta, and New Martinsville, all with 46 degrees. Looking at the surface features tomorrow, you can see that low pressure system, is going to start pushing into our region, leading to a chance for rain and a cool start tomorrow in the hour by hour. It's going to be 45 degrees at 8 in the morning, and clouds are going to remain a little bit heading into the 10th hour of the day. It's going to be 52 degrees. Winds are going to pick up, and around noon, it's going to be 60 degrees. Clouds will open up a little bit, but it's going to just be temporary, as we can expect to see a chance for some evening rain. High for tomorrow in Athens is going to be 64 degrees. It's going to be cloudy. You're going to see some rain. Definitely want to prepare by bringing an umbrella, and you might want to be careful where you're driving, somewhere that's a little bit more well lit. Winds are going to be from the southeast direction, anywhere from 5 to 10 miles per hour. And across the region tomorrow, you can see temperatures in the mid to upper 60s, actually, with warmer temperatures to our east. And to our west, it's going to be temperatures of 65 degrees in Columbus, Newark, and Chillicothe as well. Looking at the 7-day forecast for the week ahead, tomorrow it's going to be 66 degrees again. And on Friday, it's going to have a 100% chance of rain, unfortunately, with a high of 62 degrees. And that chance for rain is going to stretch into Saturday morning with a 60% chance of rain on Saturday. Particularly, mainly going to be in the morning hours. It's going to decrease as we head throughout the day with a temperature of 59 degrees on Saturday. And for Sunday, it's going to be a high of 61 degrees. Monday is going to be a high of 60 degrees, but overall it's going to, hopefully the skies will open up a little bit as we head into Halloween Sunday. That's it for weather. Back to you, Joe.
Thanks, Aaron. I'll be expecting one of the pumpkins you bring back to be the Great Pumpkin. U.S. citizens can now get a passport without their gender listed as male or female. The State Department announced in June it was implementing gender-inclusive policies. Anyone applying for a passport or consular reports of birth abroad can now mark an X gender if they identify as non-binary, intersex, or gender non-conforming persons. Previously, applicants would need a medical certification if their self-selected sex marker didn't match the sex listed on other official identity documents. The State Department is still updating the system and forms for this new policy. It should be completed in early 2022. There are now more so-called protected areas from immigration enforcement actions. Homeland Security Secretary Alejandro Mayorkas issued a memo that increases the list of these locations, which now include domestic violence shelters and playgrounds. The HSS says there are exceptions to these protected areas. They include if the person being sought poses a public safety threat or a national safety threat. This move is another part of the Biden administration's effort to take another look at how it dealt with immigration issues. The administration recently put a stop to mass worksite arrests by focusing on the employers who hire undocumented immigrants or workers. In Florida today, authorities detained a group of migrants after they came ashore near Haulover Beach. According to local media, a nearby hotel guest got video showing the group go from boat onto shore. The total number of migrants detained appear to be between 24 and 30, including one child. Border Patrol officials said 15 are in custody. They also said their agents are still searching the area with local authorities.
Coming up in sports, basketball season is right around the corner, and one Ohio player was named to a national award watch list. And right after the break, it all comes down to tomorrow at Chessa Field. Ohio soccer plays in a winner-take-all match. That and more coming up next on Newswatch. And be sure to stay tuned to WOUB. Here's a look at what's coming up tonight on your public television station.
All along the New England coast, ospreys are icons of summer. They've come to take up their greatest challenge, to compete with each other, to fend off thieves, and to raise tiny, helpless chicks. For an osprey, summer is no day at the beach. It's an annual call to battle and the toughest test of everything they are.
On Secrets of the Dead. Until now, the experiences of early women received little attention.
The female was simply forgotten.
The true story of prehistoric woman is being brought to light.
We operate under the assumption that it's the prime age males that are the be-all and end-all of Ice Age lifeways, and they're not.
Lady Sapiens on Secrets of the Dead.
Hello, I'm Bob Ross.
We were sitting on an incredible story, and my first thought was, why are we not telling this?
It's just amazing. You get to see the studio and all the original artifacts.
It's like any other room until you know the story. Bob Ross painted here. Suddenly, this space becomes magical.
This is a great new destination for Bob Ross fans all over.
The Bob Ross experience is a home for Bob Ross.
Any Bob fan would love it.
When we deployed to Afghanistan,
Iraq, Korea,
Vietnam.
we're at war.
Fear and anxiety becomes the new normal.
Combat up close changes you. I was so badly injured, my crew thought I was dead. They pulled me out anyway because you never leave anyone behind.
On D-Day, at 4 o'clock in the morning, I was a boy. 10 o'clock at night, I was a man.
Hello, everybody. I'm Bryce Tinson. Ohio soccer plays for the MAC regular season title Thursday at Chessa against the Kent State Golden Flashes. The Bobcats lost their first match of the season to Central Michigan. That loss, coupled with a Kent State win over the weekend, gives us a winner-takes-all primetime showdown. Ohio becomes outright champs with a win. A tie Thursday gives us co-champs, unless Bowling Green beats Toledo. In that case, Bowling Green is crowned. Home field advantage in the MAC postseason tournament is also on the line. The Bobcats want fans in the stands. Free steak and shake will be given to any student that attends. Kent State has to defend against the newest MAC player of the week, Reagan Berg. Berg gets the honor after a huge offensive impact last week. She recorded her 3rd assist of the season on the game-winning goal against Eastern Michigan. She also scored her first ever goal as a Bobcat against Central Michigan. That goal was the first half equalizer against the Chippewas. She scored a point in 3 straight games. She looks to stay hot in that huge MAC title matchup. Ohio women's basketball's Erica Johnson is on the Cheryl Miller Award preseason watch list. The award recognizes the top small forward in women's college basketball. The list has 20 players to start the season. Gets trimmed to 10 in January, then down to 5 in February. The 5 finalists are presented to the selection committee in March. Johnson averaged 18.7 points per game and nearly 4 assists in 19 games for the Bobcats last season. She shot 34% from long range and was part of the All-MAC 3rd team. The quarterback question continues for the Bobcats well into the season after a loss last week against Kent State. After not throwing a single pass in 2 straight games, Curtis Rourke came in halfway through the first quarter. He lit up the Golden Flashes defense for 308 yards on 31 of 38 passing. It's the most yards the Bobcats have gained through the air all season. He also added 49 yards and 2 scores on the ground. Head coach Tim Albin says next week's starter is not set.
I said after the game, they're both going to get equal reps. That was going to continue. If you just by Curtis's performance, if we're starting today, he'd start the game. That's what I anticipate. With where he's at, and there were positives.
The Bobcats take on Miami at home next Tuesday in the Battle of the Bricks. The Cleveland Cavaliers play tonight in Los Angeles against the Clippers. It's early in the season, but a game like this could show what kind of team the Cavs are. The Cavs are on a 2-game win streak after starting the season of 0-2. Their last victory came against the Denver Nuggets, one of the top teams in the West. The Cavs have 7 players averaging double figures to start the year, with Colin Sexton leading the way with 19. Jarrett Allen is averaging 17 on 38% shooting. The Clippers come in at 1-2, led by Paul George, averaging 28 points, 7 rebounds, and 5 assists and 4 steals. Tip is scheduled for 10:30 tonight. Game 2 of the World Series is also tonight. The Braves got a big win, 6-2 last night, and look to go up 1-0.
That's right. The Braves look up to go 2-0 tonight with a win, while the Houston Astros are looking to tie the series at 1 before we shift over to Atlanta. And speaking of both of those teams, in just a few days, either the Atlanta Braves or Houston Astros will win the World Series. If the Astros win, a man well known to Houstonians will take home a hefty sum. Television viewers in Houston know Jim Mattress Mac McIngvale for the commercials he stars in to advertise his furniture store. An Astros victory in the World Series would net him $35.6 million. That's because of a bet he placed at Caesars in Las Vegas back in June. You may be wondering how much he had to put down to get a payment that large, which, by the way, will be the largest single payout on a bet in U.S. history. The answer to that question is $2 million. That's how confident he was the Astros would emerge world champions. McIngvale isn't off to a great start, however. The Braves won the first game of the series Monday night. Game 2 takes place Wednesday night. The Braves could clinch the series as early as Saturday night if they win every game. If it goes to 7 games, the series could stretch until next Wednesday. Now let's throw it over to Aaron for final weather.
Thank you, Joe. Hopefully you can still see me. As you can see, it's getting really dark out here. My fingers are getting a little bit numb, so I will make this quick. But as a reminder, the high in Athens tomorrow is going to be 64 degrees. It's going to be pretty cloudy, another cloudy day in store, and there will be some evening rain as well. Across the region tomorrow, you can expect to see more similar temperatures in the mid to lower 60s, with warmer temperatures being to our northeastern regions of New Martinsville and Cambridge, and then it's going to be a little bit cooler to our southeastern regions of Ripley, and I think Jackson as well is expected to have similar temperatures of 64 degrees, just like in Athens. And then heading into this weekend as well, something I'll definitely want to emphasize is that the rain should clear up by Halloween Sunday. So I picked my pumpkin. Make sure that you get out and enjoy the weather while you can. Back to you, Joe.
Thanks, Aaron. Get back safe. And that does it for our broadcast this evening. Thanks for watching. I'm Joe Collins. Stay tuned for the PBS NewsHour coming up next. And remember, you can find the latest news anytime at WOUB.org. Have a great night.
Support comes from Dean Heating and Cooling. Stay warm this winter with energy-efficient TempStar heating. Dean Heating and Cooling provides HVAC services and installation in the Athens area, featuring TempStar quality you can feel. Support comes from Goldsberry Wealth Strategies in Athens and Parkersburg, focusing on helping people achieve a life well lived with a custom strategy. Information at goldsberrywealth.com. Raymond James Financial Services Incorporated, member FINRA, SIPC.
Good evening. I'm Judy Woodruff. On the NewsHour tonight, Biden agenda battle. Democrats scramble after a key senator breaks with the president on raising taxes on America's wealthiest to pay for a package of social spending programs. Then Brazil versus Bolsonaro. One of the world's most controversial leaders faces criminal charges for his handling of the coronavirus pandemic. We talk with his former health minister. And learning gap. Minnesota has one of the country's widest disparities in the education it offers students according to race. We look at the debate underway over bridging that divide and how it's impacting students stuck in the middle.
Students of color in particular are put at a disadvantage because schools don't necessarily function to close those gaps in any meaningful ways.
All that and more on tonight's PBS NewsHour.
Major funding for the PBS NewsHour has been provided by
moving our economy for 160 years. BNSF, the engine that connects us.
Consumer Cellular, Johnson & Johnson, financial services firm Raymond James,
BDO, accountants and advisors.
Supporting social entrepreneurs and their solutions to the world's most pressing problems. SkollFoundation.org.
The Lemelson Foundation, committed to improving lives through invention in the U.S. and developing countries. On the web at lemelson.org. Supported by the John D. and Catherine T. MacArthur Foundation, committed to building a more just, verdant, and peaceful world. More information at macfound.org. And with the ongoing support of these institutions. This program was made possible by the Corporation for Public Broadcasting and by contributions to your PBS station from viewers like you. Thank you.
Pressure is mounting on lawmakers and White House officials who met again today as they scramble to secure a deal on the president's Build Back Better agenda. But key sticking points remain, like how to pay for the massive social spending measure. For the latest on negotiations, I'm joined by our White House correspondent, Yamiche Alcindor. So hello, Yamiche. They are under the gun right now. Tell us what White House and officials and the president are doing to try to reach a deal, and tell us what the latest sticking points are.
Well, President Biden and White House officials are scrambling, Judy, scrambling to try to make a deal, to try to unite the Democratic Party so that the president, when he leaves for Europe tomorrow, can have something to talk about to our European allies. That being said, there are a lot of meetings going on, and the White House has been saying that they're confident that a deal could possibly be reached tonight or by tomorrow. But it's really hard to see that coming together because the details of the bill are still really being worked out. White House officials that I've been talking to in the last hour say that really developments have been changing hour by hour. Now, today, White House Press Secretary Jen Psaki, she said she was confident that a possibility of a deal could still be reached. I pressed her on why she felt confident, given the fact that the details are still being worked out. Here's what she told me.
I think what members of Congress have conveyed to all of you and leaders in Congress, as well as the White House and the president, is that we are very close. That's because we are very close. And it does require working through specific details and components that need to be finalized before we have a final agreement.
Now, the key part of what she said there are specific details and components. So in the last hour, we learned between myself as well as Lisa Desjardins, our Capitol Hill correspondent, that one big key provision that Democrats wanted in, that progressive Democrats wanted in, is already being seen as likely out of the deal, and that is paid family leave. Now, the president as well as progressives had been initially pushing for 12 weeks of family paid leave, which is in some ways mirroring what happens in other countries. That was then whittled down to 4 weeks. And now within the last hour, White House officials as well as Capitol Hill sources are telling us that that is likely out. And it's out because Senator Joe Manchin does not want it in. And what this is really shaping up to be is really a bill that is mirroring what Joe Manchin wants rather than what progressive Democrats wants. Another thing to really look out for in terms of what's being worked out is how to pay for all of this. Now, there was this billionaire tax that had been floated by Senate Democrats. And today, President Biden, through his White House press secretary, came out and said he was in support of the billionaire tax. But again, Senator Manchin came out and said that he was critical of this tax. He said that he did not want to be targeting people. So again, it seems as though the billionaire tax is dead on arrival. The ink isn't even dry on that sort of provision, but it's already gone, and it's again because of Senator Manchin of West Virginia.
And Yamiche, we've been reporting that President Biden was very much hoping to get this done before he leaves tomorrow for the Global Climate Summit in Europe. How concerned is he that he may leave without a deal? And what do the chances look like that there could be something before tomorrow?
Well, White House officials have been very candid about the idea that President Biden absolutely wants a deal before he gets on a plane to go to Europe. And he's going to be meeting with the Pope. He's going to be meeting with a number of European allies at the G20. He's also going to be going to a climate change conference. At all of those meetings, he wants to be able to say, here's what Democrats can get done. Here's what Democrats are doing on climate change, on paid family leave, on all of these different provisions, even though, as I said, paid family leave is likely out. But it's really, really unclear whether or not he's going to get his wish. He really wants a victory here. The White House is still insisting that there's been a lot of progress, that something could happen. Another thing to note is that House Speaker Nancy Pelosi, she wrote a letter to lawmakers today saying that tomorrow the House Rules Committee is going to hold a hearing on what she's calling the Build Back Better Act. So that is Nancy Pelosi really in some ways trying to telegraph the urgency that lawmakers want to move here with. And there's reporting that she's telling committee chairs that she wants to see a text of the bill by tomorrow's rules hearing. Again, it's very up in the air whether or not that's going to happen. Progressives are saying that they want to see a text of the legislation, the reconciliation legislation, before they vote on the bipartisan bill. So really, when the president walks out tomorrow at the White House, it's anyone's guess whether or not he's going to be able to say, yes, we have a deal, or no, we don't. Tonight, there was talk that he might go to Capitol Hill, but the White House called what we call a lid. And that means that we're not going to see the president on camera, and we're not going to see the president go to Capitol Hill tonight.
So many moving parts, and the drama continues. Yamiche Alcindor watching it at the White House. Thank you, Yamiche. And as you just heard, with the billionaire's tax reportedly in peril, Democrats now are looking at other ways to fund their social spending bill. William Brangham explains.
Judy, this so-called billionaire's tax could raise up to $250 billion if enacted, but there are also renewed looks at changing corporate taxes as well. For more on the Democrats' plans, I'm joined by Neil Irwin. He covers economics for the New York Times. Neil, great to have you back on the NewsHour. As Yamiche has been reporting, I mean, a lot of this is still in flux, and I'm always reluctant to say something is dead or alive at any given minute on Capitol Hill right now. But let's just unpack this idea of the billionaire's tax. What is it? How would it actually work?
So when most people buy an asset, buy an investment, and it goes up in value, you only owe capital gains tax on the profits when you sell that investment, when you sell those stocks or sell a business. And there's good reasons for that, right? The logic is that that's when you know how much it sold for, how many profits you have, tax on those gains along the way.
So the sort of assertion undergirding all of this is that billionaires, with these blossoming funds of money that grow, that they're not somehow paying a fair share. Now, your definition of fair share is different from anyone else's, but that seems to be the essential argument, that they ought to be paying more to the government.
It is. And this notion that people can accumulate these massive piles of wealth and go years and years and years paying very little to the government. I mean, Warren Buffett's been talking about this for years, that his secretary pays a higher income tax rate than he does because his wealth is accumulating in capital gains in his company. So that's the logic. Now, it does raise some fairness questions, some execution questions, and I think that's some of the reason that we saw some real doubts emerge just today on actually including this as part of the Biden agenda.
Well, let's talk about those execution questions. How would you go about taxing that if the person's not selling those assets and you can figure out how much they gained, how much they lost?
I mean, the logic is that at that tier of wealth, people have a lot of liquidity. They can borrow money. These are liquid assets. These tend to be publicly traded stocks that they can sell relatively easily. You would phase it in and not make people, not make Jeff Bezos and Warren Buffett sell all their stock overnight. That this would be a thing that billionaires who have lots of accountants and lots of capacity to deal with would be affected by, not owners of smaller businesses that might face real strains. That's why part of why some of the centrists in the Senate were at least open to this, who don't want to raise tax rates on the wealthy, on the capital gains tax, for example, but were willing to entertain this.
Okay, so putting that tax aside, what are some of the other ways that the Democrats are looking to try to raise revenue